Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be going in depth into my week number 14 quarterback and tight end rankings. But before we could get into things, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter, please do so at notorious FNTSY. Today's video is brought to you guys by DraftKings. Link down below in the video description, where we'll be talking about them a little bit later. So without further ado, let's get into my week number 14 tight end and quarterback rankings. We begin with the top 8 quarterbacks of the week, beginning at number 1 with Jalen Hurts of the Philadelphia Eagles, going up against the New York Football Giants in MetLife. 6 games straight as a top 6 quarterback in fantasy football. Currently the quarterback number 2 on the season. Now, I do have some worries that this might end up being a lower scoring game between the Eagles and the Giants, but ultimately, Jalen Hurts has been so fucking consistent this whole entire season. He has only had one game where he finished outside of the top 12. I'm a huge fan of Hurts, and obviously, he is going to be a must start this week. He is my quarterback number 1. At number 2, we have Josh Allen of the Buffalo Bills going up against the New York Jumbo Jets in Buffalo. It's looking like it might be a little bit snowy, a little bit cold, so that should be a fun one. Josh Allen started off the season on fucking fire, but then has had a bit of a downfall recently, but ultimately still one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. Last time out up against the Jets, he was the quarterback number 3 on the week, and it should be no surprise, even up against an incredibly stout New York Jumbo Jets defense, if Josh Allen finishes as the number 1 quarterback on the week. At number 3, we move to Patrick Mahomes, Kermit the Frog of the Kansas City Chiefs, going up against the Denver Broncos in Mile High. This season, Patrick Mahomes only had one game where he finished outside of the top 12 at the quarterback position, currently the quarterback number 1. Now, obviously, the Denver Broncos defense is incredibly fucking good, but ultimately, even up against a stout Denver Broncos defense, I still expect Patrick Mahomes to get it done. At number 4, we move to Justin Herbert, the pervert of the LA Chargers, going up against the Miami Dolphins on Sunday Night Football. Quarterback number 9 last week up against the Las Vegas Raiders. Currently the quarterback number 8 on the season. The Dolphins defense is night and day. I talk about this a lot on this channel. Night and day at home versus away. At home, this defense is really good, and then away, they forget how to play football. This game is in LA, and I fully expect Justin Herbert to have a very big game in this spot. Next up, we move to number 5, my guy Tua Tagovailoa of the Miami Dolphins, going up against the LA Chargers in LA. Now, I know we just talked about how bad the Miami Dolphins defense is away. Well, the LA Chargers defense is absolutely fucking atrocious at home and away. So I fully expect Tua Tagovailoa to have a bounce back game in this spot. We have seen extremely high highs out of Tua in this season, games inside of the top 3 of them this season. Currently the quarterback number 16, but that's mostly because he missed a couple of games during the season. I really like this matchup up against the Chargers. Again, if Justin Herbert really unleashes on the Dolphins defense, then this should be a very high scoring tit for tat, rock'em sock'em robots-esque game where both quarterbacks could honestly finish inside the top 5, and that's how I have it ranked right now. At number 6, we have Joe Burrow, Joe Shiesty, quarterback of the Cincinnati Bengals, going up against the Cleveland Browns. Now, Joe Burrow has been relatively consistent all season long, aside from one game. Drum roll, please. That game was up against, you guessed it, the Cleveland Browns. Now, I know some people say, but Nick, that was without Jamar Chase, so does it really even count? Well, there was other games without Jamar Chase where Joe Burrow was a top 10 quarterback. It is a actual fact that Joe Burrow, over his career, now it's not like this guy's been in the NFL for 10 years or something, but over his career, he has struggled mightily up against the Cleveland Browns. So I am a little bit worried about Joe Burrow in this game. I've seen people have him ranked as high as quarterback number 2 on the week. Now, I don't think it's necessarily crazy to bump him down to quarterback number 6, but I am definitely worried about the matchup because history tells us that Joe Burrow struggles against the Browns, despite the fact that the Browns haven't even been all that amazing in those stretch of games. At number 7, we have the short king, the king of Call of Duty, Kyler Murray of the Arizona Arizona Cardinals going up against the New England Patriots at home in Arizona. Quarterback 4, 8-3 over his last 3 games. Currently the quarterback number 10 on the season, which would be a lot higher if Kyler Murray didn't miss 2 games up against the Niners and the LA Rams. Now, a lot of people get down on their knees and basically suck the metaphorical cock of the Patriots defense, but ultimately, while the Patriots defense is pretty solid, I don't think with the amount of weapons that Kyler Murray has, D-Hop, Hollywood Brown, AJ Green. That's a joke. AJ Green isn't much of a weapon, but James Conner, they have a decent amount. Greg Dortch, they have a lot of players on this team that are immensely talented, so I still do think even in a tough matchup, Kyler Murray can get it done, especially since he has such high rushing upside. This guy could rush for over 100 yards in this game, and it would not surprise me one bit. I like Kyler Murray a decent amount in this game, again, despite the fact that the matchup is far from ideal. Closing out the top 8, we move to Dak Prescott of the Dallas Cowboys going up against the Houston Texans. Now, obviously, on paper, this is a wet dream matchup. This is a matchup that will make your mouth salivate, but ultimately, the Houston Texans are such a terrible team that it is entirely possible that Dak Prescott front hand, backhands, Will Smith style to Chris Rock on the Texans defense, and then in the second half, they bench Dak. So I am pretty worried about that, and if you want to be safe, there are a couple of guys that I've ranked behind Dak Prescott that I think are a little bit safer, but ultimately, Dak could be the quarterback 1 on the week if he just throws 4 touchdowns in the first half, which up against a really bad Houston Texans defense is definitely entirely possible. Now we pivot to quarterbacks 9 through 16, beginning with Jared Goff, the Goffinator of the Detroit Lions, going up against the Minnesota Vikings at home in Detroit. Quarterback number 4, as he laid his dick down into the Jacksonville Jaguars defense last week. Currently the quarterback 17 on the season. We all know the upside of Jared Goff. It's pretty crazy to rank him inside of the top 8, which is why he's number 9, because most of the time he has a great game. He's like quarterback number 8 or 9 or 10. But again, quarterback 9, 10, 8 is definitely possible in a matchup up against an incredibly bad Vikings defense, and we just are up against the pass, and we did just talk about the Dolphins versus the Chargers, an incredibly high-scoring game environment. This game has the exact same game environment, 2 defenses that are dick cheese against the pass, and I fully believe that Jared Goff can get it done in a big way in this spot. At number 10, we have the chef, Geno Smith of the Seattle Seahawks, going up against the Carolina Panthers at home in Seattle. 3 straight games inside the top 12 at the quarterback position. Now, in my opinion, the Carolina Panthers defense is a little bit underrated now. They're not necessarily some world-stopping 85 fucking Bears defense, but they are a little bit better than I'd say most people give them credit for. Quarterback 7 on the season. Again, while this isn't the best matchup ever, Geno Smith has so many weapons. I think that Geno could have a pretty solid game here. And at this point in the season, unless Geno was playing up against the best defense in the NFL, you got to rank him inside the top 12. At number 11, we have Mr. You Like That, Kirk Cousins, the new nightmare of the Minnesota Vikings, going up against the Detroit Lions in Detroit. Kirko Chains. I don't know if you guys were watching the game, the Minnesota game last week. There was a little kid dressed as Kirk Cousins with his shirt off with like a million chains, hitting the Kirk Cousins dance. It was very fucking funny. Quarterback 25 last week up against the New York Jumbo Jets, looking for a big bounce back this week, up again against a awful putrid. You could smell it straight through the screen. The Lions defense sucks complete and utter ass. I fully expect a big game out of Mr. Kirko Chains. Before we move on in to the rest of the quarterbacks as well as the tight ends, I would like to give you guys a quick word from our friends, our sponsor over at DraftKings Sportsbook. Now, if you're a brand new user to DraftKings Sportsbook and you click on the link in the video description down below or in the pinned comment, we have a great offer for you. You bet $5 on any sports pregame moneyline, and you will receive $150 in free bets if your bet wins. Now, I'm going to throw DraftKings onto the screen right now. The best thing to do is go to college basketball because they have the largest favorites, and you are just going to bet the largest favorite of the day. Take that, and then as long as they win, which they should because they're huge favorites, obviously upsets can happen at any time, so take this with a grain of salt. I would just take whatever the biggest favorite is, bet $5 on that, and then win by $150 in free bets as long as that team wins. It is also important to note that you have to use these free bets within 7 days of receiving the free bets. Again, all you gotta do is click on the link in the video description down below to activate your offer. It helps me out a ton, and it also helps you out a ton because you get you turn $5 into $150. seems kind of like a no-brainer as long as your bet wins. Next up, we move to number 12, touchdown Jesus, Trevor Lawrence of the Jacksonville Jaguars, going up against the Le Titans in Tennessee. Now, right now, it is Saturday. You're watching this on Saturday. Right now, I don't have 100% confirmation that Trevor Lawrence is going to play. So again, while I like him a lot this week, it is important to note that you should wait until Sunday to see if he's going to end up playing or not. Quarterback number 16 last week, despite the fact that he got injured during the game, came back out. Quarterback 5 the week before, 8-12. He has been incredible. Quarterback number 9 on the season. Now, the matchup up against the Titans definitely isn't frightening. It's not super scary, but it also isn't some fucking pushover, right? It's not like he's going up against the Lions defense or something like that, like he did last week. Didn't have the greatest of game, but again, he was injured. I think Trevor Lawrence is a relatively safe option week in and week out at this point. So, and he's been a top 12 quarterback every single game in the last 4 games outside of last week. But again, he did end up getting hurt. And number 13, we have Deshaun Watson of the Cleveland Browns going up against the Cincinnati Bengals in Cincinnati. Quarterback number 30 last week. He looked a little bit stressed during that game, I might add. The matchup, very easy up against the Texans. He plays terrible because I think there's just a lot of things going on in his head. He was a little bit stiff in that game, as I might add. I think he should be pretty good this week up against the Bengals. But again, my trust in him is at an all-time low, like the John Bellion song. I fully do believe that he has the talent in him. The question is he going to be throwing the ball to the fucking ground again, or is he actually going to throw the ball to the wide receivers? At number 14, we have Tyler Huntley of the Baltimore Ravens going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers in Pittsburgh, coming in relief of Lamar Jackson last week up against the Broncos. Quarterback number 15, 27 of 32 for 187 yards, 10 rushes, 41 yards, a touchdown, as well as an interception. Now, Tyler Huntley isn't Lamar Jackson, but even up against the Steelers defense, I think is pretty solid. I still think Huntley can rush enough to make him fantasy viable. Now, again, am I really excited about him? Not really, but the thing is, when there's 6 fucking teams on bye, a guy like Tyler Huntley, who has immense rushing upside, is going to land his way inside the top 14. At number 15, we have the GOAT, Tampa Bay Tom Brady of the Buccaneers, going up against the 49ers in San Fran. Quarterback 8-13, last 2 timeouts. Now, the Niners defense is rock fucking hard like your cock after you take some Cialis, so I fully expect that this is going to be a tough look for Tom Brady, but at the end of the day, once we get past, like, quarterback 16, things start to get incredibly grim. So again, while the matchup is far from ideal, Tom Brady has definitely looked better recently. Closing out the top 16, we have Danny Dimes, quarterback of the New York Football Giants, going up against the Eagles at home in MetLife. Quarterback 12-20 over his last 2 games, but that was up against Washington and Dallas. This is up against one of the best, if not the best, defenses in all of the National Football League. The Philadelphia Eagles defense is incredibly legit, while the rushing upside is there to get him kind of out of a pinch for him to finish inside of the top 16. I don't really see a smash spot for him. Now we move to the range where things start to get incredibly ugly. I would say outside of Magic Mike White of the New York Jumbo Jets, going up against the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo, 2 games straight inside the top 7 at the quarterback position. Now, I understand that the Buffalo Bills defense is no pushover, right? This is going to be a tough task for Mike White, especially since the first 2 teams that he slayed were the Minnesota Vikings, again, bad against the pass, Bears, awful against the pass. So I still like Mike White here, but there's obviously the devil and the angel. The devil is telling me that, hey, this matchup is scary. The angel is saying this guy's magical. He's like Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's going to have a good game, and I think that is also possible. So pretty interesting spot for Mike White, and this could be a game where he plays so bad that next week it's Zach Wilson, or this could be a game where he basically closes the book on him being the starting quarterback, and he is the starting quarterback all year long. At number 18, we have Mystic Mac Jones, quarterback of the New England Deflatriots, going up against the Arizona Cardinals in Arizona. Now, I understand this is one of those great matchups. This is one of those matchups where your mouth starts salivating. You're like, ooh, man, I can't wait for my quarterback to go up against the bum Arizona Cardinals defense, and then you come to a realization. You have an epiphany. It cost you 50 at Tiffany's, and you start thinking, you know what? Shit, while he's playing up against the Cardinals, I have Mac Jones. Mac Jones, who has been quarterback 23, 7, 21, 23, 23, 29, 9, 19, and 30. Not very good. Now, I know he missed a couple of games. Quarterback 29 on the season. Again, the matchup's going to entice people into Mac Jones. I get it. It's a great matchup. Problem is, the guy fucking sucks. He's only thrown 7 touchdowns on the season. Next up, we move to quarterback number 19, my guy Ryan Tannehill of the Tennessee Titans, going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars at home in Tennessee. Are you from Tennessee? Because you're the only 10 I see. That joke was really funny when I was like 10 years old. Quarterback 22, 23, 11, and 9 over the last 4 games. Wet dream matchup against the Jaguars. Problem is, the Titans don't have very many weapons, especially with Burks out. At number 20, we have Kenny Pickett of the Steelers going up against the Baltimore Ravens. Kenny Pickett's been pretty just mid all season long. He hasn't really elevated himself to be like a guy that everyone's talking about, but he also isn't really bad where people are like, why did the Steelers draft this guy? This guy is like fucking mini hands. Everyone calls him, I call him small hands Pickett. It's a funny insult. But at the end of the day here, he's just going to do decent. Like, I don't expect him to be amazing. I don't expect him to be awful either. At number 21, can you do something for me? We got Russell Wilson, Mr. Unlimited of the Denver Broncos. There isn't much I could say positive about Russell Wilson at this point in the season, aside from the fact that the guy has a fat contract. Outside of that, he's been awful. He was quarterback 33 in Week 12 against the Panthers. Quick note, there's only 12 quarterbacks. There's only 32 quarterbacks that start in the NFL. This guy's so fucking bad. So bad. The Chiefs matchup's pretty good, but the problem is he just sucks. Number 22, Mono Man Sam Darnold of the Carolina Panthers going up against the Seattle Seahawks, Mr. Ghostbusters himself. Quarterback number 16, last time out up against a stout Broncos defense. Matchup against Seattle is all right. I mean, again, I think the Seattle Seahawks defense is underrated, but the problem is, while the matchup is decent, do you have the balls to play Sam Darnold? Like, do we really believe he's going to be the guy he was against Denver, or do we think he's going to go back to his old ways of being one of the worst quarterbacks in the National Football League? To be determined. At number 23, we got Brock Purdy. It was pretty purdy on Sunday as he raw-dogged my Miami Dolphins defense. Quarterback number 18 last week. The Bucs defense is a tough task, so he's sitting here at 23. 24, we got Davis Money Mills, quarterback of the Houston Texans, going up against the Cowboys in Dallas. The guy got benched. But when he was playing, though, he was pretty reliable of being a top 24 guy. It's just he's not going to finish much higher than quarterback number 24. Now we pivot to the tight end position, beginning with, you guessed it, bitch, you guessed it, tight end Travis Kelce going up against the Denver Broncos in Denver. Again, this is obviously a tough matchup, but Travis Kelce is currently the tight end number 1 on the season. You're going to play him every single week. He had a down game last week, and in a down game, he was still tight end 15. So he's really reliable. At number 2, we have Mock Andrews of the Baltimore Ravens going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers in Pittsburgh. Tight end number 2 on the season. If you actually go back to last year, Mark Andrews was putting up bigger numbers with Huntley under center. Pretty interesting statistic. At number 3, we have TJ Hawkinson in a revenge game up against the Detroit Lions. Tight end 16-6, 14-10 over his last 4 starts. Tight end number 3 on the season. Again, this is an incredibly easy matchup for Hawkinson. I think he could have a relatively huge game in this spot. Not a guy that I'm necessarily banging the drum aggressively for, because outside of Travis Kelce and Andrews, who really are the super safe tight ends, there isn't much left outside of them that you're super confident in game in and game out. But again, the matchup's great, and it is a revenge game. At number 4, we have Pat Freiermuth of the Steelers going up against the Baltimore Ravens at home in Pittsburgh. Tight end 8, 25, and 16 over his last 4 games. Tight end 7 on the season. The Ravens defense is pretty bad up against the tight end, so this could be a big spot out of him. He has seen a reduction in targets 5 and 4 over the last 2 games compared to 12, 7, 7, and 9 over the 4 prior to that. Hopefully he gets more targets, because this could be a great spot up against the Ravens. At number 5, we have Dalton Schultz of the Cowboys going up against the Texans. Again, my biggest worry here is that the starters get benched going into the second half, and if Schultz doesn't score a touchdown in the beginning of the game, then maybe he ends up being pretty shit this week. But again, the talent is there, and the matchup is really good. At number 6, we have George Kittle, meet Timbers of the 49ers, going up against the Bucs. 2 shit games in a row, tight end 31 and 25. He has been the definition of boom or bust all season. Tight end starting in week 3, tight end 23, 37, 22, 6, 1, 6, 28, 2, 25, and 31. There's big games. There's really bad games. Again, he's super talented, so you're going to start him anyways. And number 7, we have Gerald Everett of the Chargers going up against the Dolphins at home in LA, tight end 6. Last week, they will be having Mike Williams return in this game. Who knows how long he'll stay healthy for during the game. Knock on wood, we don't root for injuries, though. Gerald Everett is a decent start every week. He's on a pretty solid offense. This game should be high scoring, so that's why I haven't ranked inside the top 8. At number 8, we have Greg Dulcich of the Broncos going up against the Kansas City Chiefs. Tight end number 4 last week. Again, while anytime you play a player on the Denver Broncos, you are just at the mercy of Russell Wilson playing like an absolute dumb bastard, but at the end of the day, he is still one of the top targets on the team. Sutton's not going to play, and that gives even more upside to Greg Dulcich. Now we move to tight ends 9 through 16, beginning at number 9 with Hunter Henry of the New England Deflatriots going up against the Arizona Cardinals in Arizona. We have seen some really high highs out of Henry and some really low lows. This is a great matchup, though. Again, while I don't trust Mac Jones all that much, after you get outside of the top 8 at the tight ends, it really is incredibly tough. At number 10, we have Eazy-E, Evan Ingram of the Jacksonville Jaguars going up against the Atlanta Titans in Tennessee. Tight end number 5 last week in a smash game up against the Detroit Lions. 7 targets, 5 receptions, 30 receiving yards, and a tug 12 fantasy points. This matchup against the Titans is just about all right. Up against the tight end, he's been relatively hit or miss as well all season, but I think he should do decent in this spot. At number 11, we have Dawson Knox, one time if you are with me, who put up a goose egg last week up against the Patriots. This week he gets the New York Jumbo Jets. The Jets actually pretty bad against the tight end, but last time these two teams played, he didn't do very good either. For some reason, the team just isn't using him like they did last year, despite giving him a juicy, fat fucking contract, so it's kind of sucks to see. And number 12, we have Noah Fant of the Seahawks going up against the Panthers at home in Seattle. Tight end number 2 last week. Again, the guy is pretty talented. Geno does love to throw the ball to the tight end. The biggest issue is that they also have Will Dissly, who he throws the ball to as well, plus the fact that they have Metcalf and Lockett. At number 13, we have Conklin of the Jets going up against the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo. During his season in 2022, we've seen him with Zach Wilson, Flacco, and Mike White. He was amazing with Flacco, pretty shit with Zach Wilson, and pretty mid with Mike White. This could be a high-scoring game, so that's why I got Conklin ranked this high. At number 14, we have Njoku of the Browns going up against the Bengals in Cincinnati. This is assuming he plays. His biggest downside has nothing to do with him. It has to do with the fact that Deshaun Watson is absolute dick cheese. At number 15, we have Daniel Bellinger of the Giants going up against the Eagles at home in New York. Tight end 18 last week in his return game. He was targeted a lot early on in the season. They don't really have a lot of weapons. Daniel Jones is throwing to fucking McDonald's employees, so there's a lot worse starts than Daniel Bellinger. At number 16, we have Chig Okonkwo, Chigozium Okonkwo. Sorry about pronouncing your name wrong, buddy, but you've been really decent. Tight end 9 last week, 5 targets in both of his last 2 games. Again, they don't have a lot of weapons in Tennessee. We talked about this with Ryan Tannehill, so wouldn't surprise me if we saw another 5-target game out of this man. Now we move to tight end 17 through 24. At 17, we have the other tight end in Tennessee, Austin Hooper. He's probably going to finish as the top 24 tight end. The upside is pretty limited, though, because Chig has been playing really well. At number 18, we have Jordan Atkins up against the Dallas Cowboys. You can talk yourself into Jordan Atkins because the Houston Texans are going to be getting plowed from the back. How you like that? Dominated 50 Shades of Grey style. And when they're throwing deep into the game, there's a chance Atkins has a decent showing again because there's so many players out on the Texans. At number 19, we have my guy Mike Licky Amagasiki of the Miami Dolphins going up against the LA Chargers in LA. Tight end 72, 58 over his last 2 games. Unless he scores a touchdown, he's going to be bad. But if there ever was a game for him to score a touchdown, it would be up against the trash Chargers defense. At number 20, we have Cade Otton of the Bucks going up against the Niners in San Francisco. Cade Otton scores a tug last week, 10 targets, 6 receptions, 28 yards, a touchdown, 12 fantasy points. Tight end number 3. Matchup sucks against the Niners, but these are kind of the guys you're just praying for score a tight end. At 21, we have Brock Wright of the Lions going up against the Minnesota Vikings. Brock Wright has been pretty decent, but the Lions have a lot of weapons at this point. Again, the matchup is pretty decent against the Vikings. The thing is, he's just not that good. At number 22, we got Will Dissly of the Seattle Seahawks going up against the Carolina Panthers at home in Seattle. Again, Noah Fant is the number 1 tight end, but he does still throw the ball to Will Dissly. At number 23, we have Trey McBride of the Cardinals going up against the Patriots. He's filling in for Zach Ertz, but he just doesn't get the target Zach Ertz gets. And at number 24, to close out today's video, Harrison Bryant. And I forgot to call fucking Brock Purdy Horsecock Brock, so that was a huge miss. I just thought of it right now. Tough scene. Yeah, Ninjoku's back, so Bryant's tight end 24. So thank you guys all so much for watching. If you did end up enjoying, make sure you smash that subscribe button down below like it owes you money. Make sure you leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter, please do so at notorious FNTSY. I love you guys all so much. Make sure you check out our sponsor in today's video, DraftKings. Bet $5 on any pregame money line, win $150 in free bets if your bet wins. I love you guys all so much. I hope you have a great rest of your guys' day. And as always, good